All right, thank you so much. I'll go ahead and get started. Hey everybody, welcome to How to Win a Cosplay Contest. I know this is going to be a little bit of something different from the rest of the programming so far. We have an amazing literary lineup, and then there's also me. So this is a little bit of my work. My name's Miri Baker. I'm a self-taught seamstress, and I've been cosplaying since 2007, competing since 2009, winning since 2011, and judging since 2015. The main contest that I judge is one of the major craftsmanship contests at Dragon Con, which is a really huge, like, costuming heavy event held down in Atlanta every Labor Day weekend. And I say one of because I think there are between 7 and 9 cosplay contests at that convention every year. The one that I judge is the Saturday afternoon cosplay contest, which is one of probably the two most like craftsmanship intensive costume contest. So it's not just, can you put on a funny skit or connect with the audience, but like, no, I'm going to be up in your business, looking at your seams, you know, seeing everything that you've done. So I am speaking from both sides of the table here. This is a few of my award winners over the years. Back to 2011, wow, that was a long time ago. Yes, in this photo on the far left, I am baby. And obviously I'm not going to turn down a perfectly legitimate opportunity to show off some pictures. So we will bounce right along. Some of assumptions and caveats. There is more to cosplay than competing. I definitely don't want this to be that, oh, you know, you have to be perfect and everything must be absolutely beautiful. And if you can't win at master's level of an international contest, don't bother. No, cosplay is about having fun. That's it. Make your costume, buy your costume, have fun with some friends, stand alone in a corner being Slender Man. That's fine. However, this panel is about, okay, I've decided I want to go into a contest and I want to win. Fair enough. That's what I like doing too. There are different types of contests. The two primary types would be your presentation style contests, your skit contests, your masks, and then craftsmanship contests, which is what I'm talking about and where all of my experience is. I have not done the skit contests. I would not be very good at the skit contests, so I have skipped those. First step to winning, know what type of contest you are in. Most times the convention website will have all the information about the different contests, or in the case of some larger events, there will be Facebook groups or Twitter accounts or separate forums for different programming tracks, different contests. This stuff is usually available online, up to and including sometimes even the rubric of what we're looking for. And that leads us into the most important caveat. This is my experience. I have been at this for a while. I've talked to many judges. I've been in many events. There is nothing funnier than entering a contest, realizing that the person beside you in line is also a judge and just going off, talking shop. So this is sort of the sum total of those experiences, but when it comes down to it, anytime you're in a contest, you're talking to between 1 and 5 or 6 individual people, and sometimes their taste or the tone of the event is going to be different from this. So this is more general than not in some ways, but I hope you find something useful. So generally speaking, in a craftsmanship contest, this is about how well you have made the costume, how true it is to your source material, and sort of a presentation component of how well can I see how well it's made. And we'll go into those in more detail. But I think of it as there are a number of places when you're in one of these contests, you're usually in some sort of a prejudging situation where you'll go in, show off to the judges, they'll make their notes, they'll decide. And then at the catwalk or the big event where everybody at the convention can come see your costume, they will announce the winners that they have predetermined. This is, for many reasons, the biggest one being in a pure craftsmanship competition. It is very difficult to get all the information I need from seeing someone walk across the stage for 30 seconds from 30 feet away. I love prejudging. It's grueling from both the entrant and judge perspective, and I can talk a little bit more about that later. But it also has felt like the most fair way to say, am I getting the credit for the work that I did? And it's a little bit of a guard against, the other factors of, okay, there's a crowded auditorium and it might be far away, it might be dark. Somebody's costume might read better in this light than mine does if I'm doing mostly black or something like that. So another component here is that presentation will sort of bleed into the craftsmanship category a little bit, because how well is it made and how well can I see how it's made is they're linked questions, but we'll break them down a little bit from there. Craftsmanship, this seems recursive. Yes, we're going to talk about how we judge craftsmanship in a craftsmanship contest. This is the obvious thing. How well is it made? Does it look like it's going to fall apart? Does it fit you? Are the lines clean? Are the finishes clean? I have definitely, I think this was the second contest I ever entered, stepped on the hem of a skirt wrong and ripped one of the gathers out literally 20 feet away from the judging room. This happens. We get it. It's tragic because then it can be a little bit of a gray area as a judge. It's like tragic accidents happen, damage happens, but I do have to judge what's there. So basically, this has instilled a very paranoid amount of sewing things that could theoretically be flimsy in me. Are the edges finished? You can see things like hems, even the insides of costumes. I know it feels like we shouldn't judge that too much, but the thing is, you can usually kind of tell from the outside. Are the seams sturdy? Are they finished? Again, does it fit you? And anime costuming in particular, and some TV costuming, some video costuming, it's not really meant to adhere to the laws of physics, we're going to say. But how well did you work around that? How well did you make something that fits you but portrays the spirit of that character, which is kind of bleeding into accuracy, so we'll get to that in a minute. It's really hard to tell that something is well made if it doesn't fit well. And that can kind of suck, but it is also just, we are prejudging. There is not a lot of time. And any little thing that can make it so that we can immediately zero in on, here's the really good things about it, here are the things that you might be proud of, is going to help you. Similarly, is it free of kind of seam bumps, bubbles, unintentional damage, that kind of thing. There's some less obvious things. These are the, not just, did you not make anything less good than it could have been, but these are the sort of bonus point elements. When you're putting the costume together or even thinking of it in the first place, is there something really clever or elegant about the patterning? Can you show us that kind of thought? Struggling, for example, should have put some of these in my slide notes. Also realized I'm talking very fast, so I'm going to bring that down a little bit. One of the most important things that I'm looking for in a craftsmanship entrant is, how did you think about putting this costume together? And can I see that thought in the way that it's patterned, in the way that seams fit together, in the way that your pieces are fit together, in the way that you chose textures or chose different weights of fabric to get a specific effect? Are there a variety of techniques and materials on display? Here's another thing. This is a specific note that I've gotten in a contest that I did win, which still baffles me, but just goes to show there's always a little bit more to it. I'm actually going to, oh gosh, it's probably not worth bouncing. Okay, I'm going to bounce to the picture with the slide with the pictures on it. This one, second from the left, this is Madame de Pompadour from the anime Le Chevalier d'Eon, which I recommend as a what if the spy Déon de Beaumont from before the French Revolution, but as just a straight up supernatural possession story, and also the French court and Madame de Pompadour are there. It's a lot of fun. The note I got on this costume, too much of the same fabric. And my judge absolutely did clock me. This is all Casa satin from Joanne. This red, the white ruffles, the orange on the sides, the bows. There's a little bit of lace on top of the sleeves, and this kind of beige here. Like, I'm still really proud of this dress, and it's one of my favorites, but you can imagine how much more interesting it would have been if there had been a little bit of variety, if it hadn't been all of this one single kind of sheen. And there are costumes where that can be what you're going for. We're going to jump over to the end here. My Milady from Persona 5. This is a shiny pile of nonsense. But the source material, in this case, was a lot more about being a shiny pile of nonsense, and not something that's a little more historical and a little more grounded. So that's another component of it. How did you think about what the source is and kind of how it would manifest into the real world? Another thing, this is something that I always get really excited about. Do all the dumb things that the costume designers put in the outfit actually function? You see this a lot in video game costuming, especially. I don't know if anyone here is familiar with Kingdom Hearts, Final Fantasy, these kind of Square Enix games that are very, very famous for having just too many belts, too many zippers. Everything is nonsense. Do they actually function? Because there's not even a good reason for this. It's just sweet. It's just really cool when that functions. And can you move in it? Can you breathe? Can you sort of exist in it? Like there can be sort of a lionization of, oh, you know, you suffer for your art and you do the thing even though it's uncomfortable because anime does not care about your physics. But if you are obviously suffering when you walk into the judging room, it's hard for me to get quite as excited because I don't want to see you suffering. And part of me will wonder, are there decisions you could have made that would have made this less miserable for you? Granted, I will say, I have not always been the best about this. Let's go back to Milady. I cannot use the restroom unassisted in this costume. A dear friend and handler of mine literally had to come with me into the stall and hold it up for me. So like, we've all been there, but I could at least move around in it and believe it or not, could speak and breathe in it pretty well. I think that's, and then this is the sort of shoot the moon category. The did you just do something completely absurd? These are the things I love seeing walk into the room. These are the things I remember years later. Unfortunately, I wasn't around for this specific contest. I heard about a particular anime character who designed and 3D printed the screen accurate rubber soles for his handmade boots. Like, yeah, that's worth a lot of points. My favorite, and I will be kicking myself for probably another 5 years that I did not get this person's contact information and become best friends with them. The first year I was judging at Dragon Con, we had an Iron Man Mark I made out of aluminum reclaimed from a service aircraft with a self-supporting, fully articulating spring-loaded spine. I think he was the third person we judged that day, and the rest of the day we're just going, well, it was pretty good, but it wasn't Iron Man. Like, and he was so surprised when he won too. It kills me every time. But you just did something ridiculous, and you did it well, and you pulled it off, and you just can't do any better than that. So that is sort of the craftsmanship focused. Basically, if you think, well, I hope the judge doesn't see this, or if, especially if you're back in the construction phase going, do I want to cut this corner? This is a super annoying thing to finish up. I hope they don't see it. I regret to inform you that we're probably going to see it. And it's at this point that it's really important to know your own goals. If you want to walk around the convention and be recognized and hang out with people, and this is making you actively miserable, cut that corner. Do not care if anyone judges you for it, yeet them into the moon. If you walk into a craftsmanship contest to be judged, this is the kind of thing we will see. But at the same time, don't feel like you have to give us a laundry list of everything you're not happy with. Hey, you can't tell it all, but I put this one panel in backward and I know about it and now I have to share with you my secret shame. Like, the flip side of that is if we don't see it, you got away with it, and it is okay to get away with it. Generally speaking, the more complicated a costume, the more just stuff there is for me to take in, the easier it is to get away with some of the smaller things. But there is a fine art to figuring out, okay, which parts of this design are so integral that I cannot get away with it? What are the things that my eye is going to go to? What are the things that a judge's eye is going to go to? What are the things that are going to make it harder for me to wear? Because that has this cascading effect of, you're self-conscious, I'll notice that you're self-conscious, I'll wonder what's going on there. It's hard to be really, really positive about it. And I have had people come up to me for feedback after the contest, which it depends a lot on the event, a lot on the judge, a lot on the layout of the contest. If that's a thing you can do, I tried to talk to as many people as I can, because I actually had a judge from my first ever contest who tracked me down at the convention later and said, you were really close. Here's the couple more things you could have done. And they were things I knew. They were things I knew about. I knew my tie wasn't good. I knew my boots needed work. And a lot of times your eye, if you're wanting to do this kind of craftsmanship work, your eye is pretty much there. So just follow your eye down another Red Bull and do the annoying thing is what it really comes down to. Cosplay craftsmanship is kind of an endurance game. It really is. The second big bucket, especially in a lot of convention and cosplay contests, this one obviously doesn't matter if you're in a pure, what did you make original design nonsense costume contest. And I say nonsense with like all affection and love. I love this kind of thing. I have done original designs. I was that kid who showed up in a convention with my, what if the bad guys in Kingdom Hearts had taken over one of the princesses, like black, like the yellow bell gown from Beauty and the Beast, but black. That was me. I was that teenager. I still pretty much am that person. But if you're in an accuracy focused contest, a cosplay contest generally will be like this. Did you capture the reference? Are all the pieces present? Does the design read as the character? Ah, there's my typo. There was gonna be one. Thank you everybody for sharing this moment with me. But there is such a thing as too accurate. Again, anime does not care about your proportions. So did you make the edits to make it seem like a reasonable thing a human being might wear? And specifically, you, the human being, might wear. I found that the overall proportions on you are going to go a lot farther to make this seem like the character brought to life than saying, well, in the animated show, the character's hair is down by their knees, so I need knee-length hair. Sidebar, do not have knee-length hair. You will regret it every moment you walk for the rest of the con. So there's sort of a balancing act there. The color palette. And this is a lot about knowing what the source is. I always love to see my contestants put a lot of thought into the context. Is this a mythological dress monster who's supposed to be bright and nonsensical and look like it doesn't quite fit in the world that it's in? Like, go for it. Is this a military uniform? Is this something that should have seen battle damage or that should be very buttoned up and subdued? Looking at a still from an animated show or from a video game or even from a live action show, that gets into screen accuracy territory, and those are scary waters. I have dipped a toe in and then ran screaming, because like the people who do screen accurate costuming, they go hard and are not to be messed with for live action. But being able to look at a still and say, make those mental color corrections of how would this look in sunlight or in a convention or in real life, by doing sort of this, there's a kind of mental defiltering trick of saying, looking at the scope of this animation, the color palette they tend to use, what does that look like if you do the full transposition into real life? And there are trends in cosplay coloration in particular. I found it really interesting in the last few years. We went through a few phases of back in Sailor Moon, when Sailor Moon was very big. For those who aren't familiar, they are very like primary color-coded senshi outfits, the pleated skirts, the collars. And the trend was to go very bright, very flat, just straight anime onto the sidewalk. And then probably 10 years ago, and I'm speaking from the time that I've been paying attention to cosplay. There have almost certainly been trends that have gone up and down before that. The trend started being towards, that realism, the tone it down a little bit. That sort of real is brown trend that we saw in video games was very much what was happening in cosplay as well. The assumption that the colors in an animated game or an animated show are going to be brighter on purpose. You bring it down, you ground it in the real world. I actually really love both of these applications, and there's a lot of gradients in between. What's important to me, how did you tie it to the source? How did you think about it? Guys, they're
Hey Mary, sorry about that. Looks like your feed went down just briefly, but I think you're back on now.
James, my facilitator, can you let me know if everybody can still hear me? I was seeing some drops on my end.
Yeah, so you dropped for just a minute or so, but you're back on
Okay.
now.
Okay. Can you tell me the last thing that you heard from me?
I don't remember. I kind of got
Okay.
distracted by the tech stuff. Sorry about that.
No worries. All right. Well, I'm going to restart my soapbox about what accuracy isn't. We are not, accuracy is not your size, it is not your race, it is not your level of ability. There are judges who will dock you accuracy points based on these criteria. They are wrong and bad. And we're starting to see fewer and fewer of them as conventions have robust anti-harassment policies, anti-discrimination policies. Straight up, marginalized groups are still not represented in media as much, which means if you're not a thin, white, or sometimes Japanese person, you just don't have as many options. If you're sticking to this, I feel like I have to cosplay everything, that I can only cosplay something that I look literally like the animated character. There is a lot of nuance around, for example, people of less marginalized backgrounds cosplaying characters of more marginalized backgrounds. But for the accuracy perspective of a craftsmanship contest, I'm not going to say that I do not care. What I will say is that, one, if you're not doing something like obvious blackface, for example, or anything that could be in the same realm as obvious blackface, I do not care if your skin does not look like the animated character. I do not care if you are a foot taller or a foot shorter than the animated character. And I think that judges who do care about that are really doing themselves, you, and the convention community as a whole a disservice. And if you ever hear about somebody doing that, send them to me and I will light them up. Another thing, being in character, especially to the detriment of your interactions with other humans. By and large, in craftsmanship contests, I don't care if you're in character or not. You probably don't have time to be in character if you're just trying to explain, here's what I made. If the judges are sniffing at your shoulder seams, like, it's just not a thing. But in particular, and this is just a general rule for being in costume at a convention anyway, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the stereotype of the Deadpool who runs around doing, annoying and or harassing things because they're in a full body mask and they're Deadpool. Don't ever be that person, but especially don't be that person when I'm trying to judge your costume. It will not win you points, it will lose you points. Do not do it. Presentation. This has been the hardest part for me as someone who would prefer to do all the work and then let the work speak for itself. And then I became a judge and went, oh no, it's important. This is how I find out about the things that I can't immediately see. Yes, you probably have to talk. And generally speaking, you're going to need the spiel. The line I use at my contest is tell me what you made and how you made it. This serves a few purposes. One, it focuses immediately on these are the things that I want to know about. I have had people try to give in character monologues. I have had people who are very nervous and didn't know how to start. I get it. I need to know what you made and how you made it. This also smokes out people who try to walk into a contest with something they did not make, which happens an astonishing amount of the time. You will be timed, whether you're on a stage or at a prejudging. Cons are big, contests are big. Everything has to run on a set schedule, as we're all very well aware right now. In my contest, I usually have a timer set for 2.5 minutes. That is not a lot of time. And if something comes in and is like 3 transformers that are scraping the ceiling, like, yeah, they will get a little bit more time. But when it comes down to it, we want to give everybody the chance to compete, and we need to get you through. Practice this beforehand. Something that I found really helpful is to make a list of the things in the costume that I'm really, really proud of. That can be really hard when you're in the depths of a costume going, I've been staying up until 1 a.m. for the past 3 weeks working on this. I hate it all and wish it would just be done and or die already. But try. And then sort of shorten that list to what are the things I'm really proud of that I won't be able to just point at and give, a 2-sentence, look at the thing, this is the thing. You will still want to go look at the thing, this is the thing, but if it's obvious how cool it is, you can gloss over it. This is I know this top hat looks store-bought, but I actually made it myself out of, plastic, the stuff that you can see how good I am at this. I'm describing a hat that I did actually win a contest with. The plastic mesh that you would weave yarn through, just the really interesting stuff. Actually, if you can look under here, you can see this really interesting lining fabric that goes with the theme of the character. You're just going to feel a lot better and be a lot more confident if you've done a little bit of this beforehand, and highly recommend. The little things. Is everything on your person? I have started, and it took me 8-9 years to start doing this. I have started making packing checklists for all of my costumes. They also serve as did I remember to put everything on my body because it is 7 a.m. and I'm nervous and I haven't had my coffee yet, or I've had too much coffee and now I'm really nervous. Is everything zipped? Is everything buttoned? Are all the lines sitting right? Do you need to pull anything into alignment? Do you need to, hide a safety pin under there so you can just stick something there and don't have to worry about it? Remember, if you got away with it, you got away with it. And my favorite, my soapbox, the thing I have blogged about, the thing I will blog about again. Did you iron it? A lot of people never learn to iron because home ec has been failing us for many, many years, and a lot of clothes that we wear in the day-to-day just don't need it. The very best thing you can do for the presentation of your cloth-based costume, just forgot the word costume, wow. Obviously, this doesn't apply to armor. You get a pass just this once. But your cloth-based costume is iron it. And hopefully, you will have been ironing it all the way through everything that you've done from cutting the fabric to making the costume. Because if you don't iron every little thing, you don't iron a seam, it's slightly bubbly. The next thing you attach it to, the errors propagate. And then you get to where you're putting it on. You're showing it off, you're super proud of it, and there's this one little thing that will not lay right because it is physically unable to because you did not iron your piece of fabric back in step 1. But even if you've been ironing up until this point, get it out the morning of the contest before you put it on your body, iron it. It makes it so much easier for me to see all the cool work you did. And I would be remiss in not going over the flip side, how not to win a cosplay contest. We've already mentioned a couple of these. There is entering something you did not make. Again, you can buy a costume. You can buy a custom-made commission costume, or you can buy one off eBay. That's fine. You can't enter it in the contest. This goes back to knowing what kind of contest you're entering. Read the rules. Frequently in a craftsmanship contest set of rules or kind of brief, it'll say you need to have made X% of the costume. X is usually somewhere around 60, 70%, 80%. Realistically speaking, in one of these contests, you're going to be competing against people who made 90 to 100%. Shoes are a common place where, like, I don't expect you to be a cobbler necessarily. I have literally only heard once about the 3D printed a custom made rubber sole to his boot. You know, undergarments, whatever, wear your undergarments. But everything I can see, and that is a key part of the costume, you're going to realistically need to have made to have a good chance at this. Even worse, entering something you didn't make and lying about it. This one's a little trickier, but many of the judges that I've talked to and, you know, cosplayers I've talked to, it's a big hobby, but it's not that big, and it is a photo-based hobby. Frequently, we will recognize somebody's work, or over the course of talking to you, asking you questions, hearing your spiel, we will be able to tell if something isn't quite right. And this is another really good reason to have this prejudging, make this a conversation. We don't want to give awards to people who cheated, straight up. So we will be trying to figure out over the course of this, you know, 2.5-minute conversation, are you trying to pull one over on us? And if you are, one, you will not win anything. Two, costume contest judges talk to each other like a lot. I'm not going to say a lot of us know each other, but word spreads from, say, the Georgia community where DragonCon is to the South Carolina community to the Louisiana. Like, it's not that big a world. And related to that, what's called sandbagging, the grayest gray area in competitive cosplay. Sandbagging is the colloquial term for when you won a major award with a costume and then start bringing it to different events trying to win more awards with it. I know this is a very specific thing to cosplay. There are a lot of hobbies where that would be fine. And there are a lot of debates about it. So I'll sort of summarize my thoughts on it. What I've seen the sort of general consensus be, all cons are not created equal. There are small local cons that maybe only have a couple hundred people or have a very small pool of entrants, all the way up to your Comic Cons or Dragon Cons, your, you know, multi tens of thousands of people's events. And usually, if you made a costume, you're really proud of it, you took it to one of these local cons, you win best in show, and then you want to go compete at something significantly larger with it, that is fine. Like, those competitive pools are very different. The standards are probably going to be different. It's not like just winning the same contest over and over. However, if you win best in show at something like a Dragon Con and then try to come back the next year with the same costume, it's just considered to be in poor taste, is I think the best way I can say it. Competitive cosplay definitely has a lot of, you know, learning new things and getting better, and there's definitely a feeling of you should be making your next thing. And by and large, once something has won a major award like that, it's like, it's not saying you can't wear it ever again, like we can't police that, but you shouldn't be going around soaking up all of the awards, and basically not ever letting the next set of contestants who maybe haven't won anything or haven't competed or have made something new, basically hoarding all the awards from those people. And I think this is especially important because a lot of divisions in cosplay contests, for better or for worse. I have some feelings about the way this is set up, but a lot of the divisions are based on how many awards have you won. So something like novice would be, you know, I've never won an award, or I've won one or two. Something like journeyman would be maybe I've won one major award or a few minor awards or 2 or 3 awards. Maybe there's a professional level, which can be a little bit outside of that category, which is if I've, you know, made some portion of my living from making clothes, for example. It is probably not fair for me to compete against hobbyists. But basically what sandbagging does is focuses the awards in a very small group of people, so that then you stack up your novice category with people who have never quite been able to beat that one really awesome costume, and then people who are genuine novices never have a chance. So it's bad for the community, it's bad for people sticking with the hobby, for kind of new creators coming up through the ranks. And people will not like you. And there is some nuance about this too. I have been on the wrong side of this one. I won a third place at a medium-sized, third place in my division at a medium-sized convention. And I wasn't overly happy with the costume. You know, I was like, okay, there's some pieces that are missing. I want to fix some stuff up. I want to make the shape better, you know, make some updates. And I did that, and I went, okay, I'm going to what I consider to be a much bigger, much more prestigious competition. I'm thinking, okay, it's probably fine. You know, I'll be honest with them, whatever, but I think this is sufficiently different. Listeners, one of the judges was the same. And that is something I have never lived down and will never live down as long as I live. And he's like, no, I've seen this before. I don't want to see it again. I'm like, that's fair. So kind of when in doubt, once you've won an award, that's it. You know, make something new, try it again. And the last and most important thing, and this is going to sound very snappy, but it is very genuine. We really want to love you. You come into the craftsmanship judging room, we want to be blown away. We want to have stories about the, you know, frickin' Iron Man Mark 1. We want to have so many people to give awards to that it's actively difficult for us, because those are the fun years, and those are we're seeing people push the art form forward, and we're seeing people who really care about what they're doing. And we are just nerds in costume too. And it is hilarious to me when people get uppity or elitist about cosplay. You literally poured hundreds or thousands of your dollars and or hours into looking like an anime character. That's it. I don't know how you develop a high horse about that. But we've all been there. If we're judging, especially, we've all been exactly where you are. And I can't say don't be nervous, because I know that if you could just not be nervous, you just wouldn't be nervous and it wouldn't be a problem. But remember that we really do want to like you, and we really are just into the same things you are. So that is everything I had prepared. So I'm happy to take any questions that people have, or sip my water for a little while. All right. I see that we have a question. Is it worth investing in a serger? And is there an affordable one that works well for a beginner? Is it worth it? Yes. Oh my goodness gracious, yes. I'm going to put myself back on the screen. I'm small. Oh gosh, I jumped ahead. As far as affordable, my general spiel on affordable machines is that, one, you do not want an affordable singer, because they're mostly plastic parts and will break exactly when you need them most. Ask me how I know. Brothers and genomes are typically fairly good if you can find a kind of low to mid-range brother or genome serger. I've found those to be pretty good. I'm going to stop sharing screen for a second. This is Coming to you live from my my craft room, as a matter of fact, slash office. This one you would need to find on sale to be affordable, but this is a baby lock, and I love it with my whole heart. Some of my costumes, going back to, oh no, now I blew out the white balance. Like Milady, the pink nonsense from the beginning would not have happened without a serger. Just, it couldn't have. For those who are unfamiliar, sergers are a type of machine. I'm trying to see if I have any serge seams on me that I can show you. I'm not sure that I do. They're a type of machine that instead of just doing the sewing, they actually sew and cut along the edge of the fabric and then kind of sew over the lines. So if you were to turn your jeans inside out and you see the kind of zigzag stitching that goes over the edge of the fabric, the serger just does that. It has a little blade, so you do have to be kind of careful. They are the best way to make clothes that can go through the wash, that iron well, that do not fall apart, that you could not rip apart if you tried. That stop things from fraying, especially for one of the things I had to do once was a lot of pleated cotton trim. And if you have to deal with all of the little folds and pleats and everything, and keep it flat while you're sewing it onto a bunch of stuff, it sucks. It really sucks. So just having a serged edge on that, it's like, it's flat, it's sandwiched together, it's straight, it has threads over the edges, don't have to worry about it, done. Highly, highly recommend getting a serger. And again, Brother and Genome are going to be your good lower to middle ensigns. All right. Again, if you have any more questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. Happy to talk about, I guess, pretty much anything with regards to costuming, learning to make stuff. I'm entirely self-taught. The cosplay.com forums back when I was 13 and 14 were where it was at. High five, cosplay.com forums. I think they're still alive. Forums have definitely gone out of fashion in favor of things like YouTube tutorials and Twitter. Instagram is where a lot of the cosplayers are. But there's so many good resources online. And I see we have some people typing. That's exciting. Drink some more water. Behold, a glass from a convention. It's MomoCon down in Atlanta, which I'm very biased in favor of because it started on my college campus. Whew. All right. Ooh, this is a cool one. Do you do flats and traditional design specs for your cosplay designs? What's your technical process? It varies a lot and has varied a lot over time. And now I'm really sad that I just cleaned up my craft room because I, in fact, don't have the like wild stacks of sketches that I normally do. Process-wise, I typically what I'll do is get sort of my resources or my references together. For example, I've already got a folder started on this machine for my next costume, which will be Lady Rhea from Fire Emblem, which I have definitely played 140 hours of since quarantine started. So get all the references together, get as many different angles. You know, sometimes the character designers really have your back and will have like here's the different layers with things removed, here's the cross sections. It's amazing. And then I usually pick one that's like my key reference, turn it into a like image process it a little bit to have it into a high contrast black and white, print it out, do all my proportions just in pencil, you know, referencing my, excuse me, my own height. I am pretty short, but have a regular sized torso and very short legs, so it can be sometimes very tricky. So referencing my own height, my own proportions, figure out what would the measurements of this be on me. And then I draft patterns from scratch. I probably don't do that in like a academically or industrially valid way, because again, self-taught from the internet. But there's a lot of, you know, taking measurements, drafting the piece on paper, cutting it out. I will usually cut it out in a muslin or some kind of other cheap fabric, fit it, realize that it doesn't fit at all like it did in my head, cry a little bit, make edits to that muslin or fake piece until I'm happy with it, and then transfer that over, usually back to paper, in between, and then onto the real fabric. cut, sew from there. I have started doing a little bit more in the way of 3D printing. I do have a 3D printer around the house, and there's a lot of services online where you can get stuff 3D printed, either for templates or for just little pieces of the costume. But yeah, that's pretty much the overall. I find that a lot of my time is spent in the drafting and patterning stage, and that once I've got a pattern down, it's just executing the dang thing, which can take a while and be kind of grueling, but at least if major errors are going to happen, they probably happen in the drafting phase.
So I lost track of time a little bit just now, but we have about 5 minutes left, and it looks like
Right.
Craig just sent a question. Jay's typing in one more.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. All right, question. You mentioned accuracy. Say a costume has an aspect that is practical in theory, but is slightly oversized or more characterized to go beyond functional. If comfort isn't a concern, do you side with actual functionality that makes sense, or the more accurate but more video game anime physics? I would say this 100% depends on the source, actually. And I think you can make an argument for either case. Looking at the rest of the costume that you have planned, does it feel like the more cartoony thing? One, does it feel like the more cartoony thing would go? Is that sort of the overall style that you're going for? And two, which one do you think you can execute better? Because ultimately, you do have to execute the thing really well. I love a giant nonsense video game prop that has no business existing in real life. But those can be tricky in a way that something that's a little more regular size and a little more functional is not. Yeah, and while Jay is typing, I'll go on to say that the entire effect of everything you have and everything that you're wearing going together actually does a lot in terms of accuracy in getting points, in you walking in and us feeling like, yes, this person has a really comprehensive vision. They went for something and they did it, and it all looks good together. Oh, thank you, Jay. Oh no! Oh no! There was more of a comment than a question. No, you can't do this. I'm gonna have to mute you. And I will move on to my final slide then. Where to find me? I'm on Twitter at Mary Baker. My Twitter is a little more kind of writing and literary focused, though I do some yelling about, hey, I'm making another stupid thing. And then my cosplay focused Instagram and Facebook are Millimetric Cosplay. And here's a few more of my pieces. And actually, I'm so glad Jay is here. So this piece over here on the, oh, I am not sharing my screen. I am not sharing my screen. I'm gonna share my screen. We did it. All right, now I'm sharing my screen. This piece over on the far right here is actually a collaboration between me and Jay Wolf. Jay did this amazing rib cage that I'm wearing here. This is, of course, Harold Hart from the book Gideon the Ninth. If you're not familiar, this is an unpaid advertisement. Go read this book. It's great. And it's also very cosplayable. But thank you all so much for having me. And yes, we have, these are not my award winners. These are just ones that I like. So we have the Monster of the Darkness from Order of the Stick.
That one's awesome.
The ducky saved my life because I had just done something super technical in black and white. I'm like, I need a little bit of fun and joy. And then Spooky Boogie from the anime Psychopaths, which is also quite good. So thank you very much, and hope you all enjoy the rest of your convention. And thank you so much, James, for facilitating for me.